that, yeah, we got a really advanced aircraft, and we got some bombs that make big booms, but it doesn't defeat, in this case, the Houthi threat. And and the same with saying, oh, these Iranian-backed groups attacked us, so now we're going to go get those Iranian-backed groups, and we may even hit Iran. And you go, okay, let's follow your logic there, big guy. You supply Ukraine with HIMARS missiles, and then they turn around and use those HIMARS missiles to blow up Russian citizens sitting in a bakery drinking coffee and eating bagels and donuts. And so if we're going to use your Tower 22 rule, then by that very rule, Russia's entitled to blow the hell out of Washington, D.C., New York, Atlanta, Chicago, you name it. Because, you've established that your rules-based international order is, if you hit us, we're going to hit you. And if you've provided weapons to the person that hit us, we get to hit you too. Mm-hmm. Okay? If that's the rules, let's play by those rules, but recognize that we've now opened ourselves up to the same kind of attack. And what's ridiculous, we've launched 85 strikes. Did that one strike on Tower 22 come from 85 different locations? Are you kidding me? No, it didn't. So go after the ones who did it. Punish the ones who carried out the attack. Don't engage in collective punishment, because all that does means you're going to kill some other people who feel that they had nothing to do with it, and you are going to piss their relatives off. And they, particularly in that neck of the woods, they don't forget. I think I may have told you the story. One of my good friends at the agency, we were in the career trainee program together. His job was targeting and trying to recruit Iranians to spy for the United States. And he described this one meeting he had. He got a notification from one of his sources, and the guy said, "I got to meet with you." And so my friend is there at this meeting, and this Iranian guy comes in, and he is upset. And my friend goes, "Oh, what's wrong?" He goes, "Oh, this massacre, these women and children, that they killed 2,000." And my friend said, "Who?" Starts writing it down. "Who killed them? Really? And where did this take place?" I'm writing it all down. And finally he says, "So when did this happen?" And the Iranian guy stopped and went, "I think it was 950 AD." Now, so in other words, that happened like almost 2,000 years ago. Not quite, 1,500 years ago. And they're just they're still talking about it like it happened yesterday. Mm-hmm. And the point of that is, these people remember from generation to generation the wrongs done to them. They don't have Alzheimer's like we do in the West. Hell, we can't. Vietnam? What? Vietnam? We did something in Vietnam? Are you kidding? We don't remember. The foreigners who have suffered death and destruction at our hands, they remember. They'll come get you. So what we're doing right now with these crazy bombing attacks, like I said, on 85 different locations, we're like the guy standing in front of the mirror, flexing our muscles, just say, "Oh, look how strong I am." And all you're looking at is just comparing yourself to yourself. And it's not really accomplishing what you claim that it's accomplishing. It's creating more problems that are going to create more harm and more damage for us.
Well, before I go back into what you were just saying, because it's something that I wanted to ask you, I noticed a few things that were going on the dashboard that I have to say. For those of you who are just joining us, I saw the discrepancy in the live time. I think it was about a 2-minute lag behind with StreamYard or YouTube. They're doing something, but we cannot do anything about it. We're going to power through this, and we're going to enjoy Larry while we have him here. So, Larry, again, as I said, how do we make heads or tails of these policies, these irrational, illogical, insane policies? And are there any adults running the ship?
Yeah, I don't think so. This has been driven entirely by domestic politics now. So on the one hand, the U.S. Unwavering support up to this point for Israel has been driven by the money that comes from the American-Israeli Political Action Committee flowing to both Republicans and Democrats. Now, there are a few Democrats like Ilhan Omar, Presley, the Palestinian gal out of Michigan. They've been outspoken against the policy, but they're viewed as fringe actors. And, frankly, some of the previous antics, didn't do much to enhance their reputation other than to be perceived as crazy. But, the vast majority of the members on both Republican and Democrat side, they're siding with Israel. So nobody's about to come out and say anything bad about Israel or criticize or attack them. In fact, anybody that does, they want to expel you from, the organization that you are part of. The other aspect here is you've got the religious element in the United States. Those Christians that believe that these are the last days. This is all tied up in what's known as eschatology, the study of last things. That this is prophecy being fulfilled. That this is the preparation for the Battle of Armageddon, and that all of these trials and tribulations take place in preparation for the return of Jesus. I mean, that's, people may not want, the non-religious out there may want to dismiss that as, that's crazy talk, but these people really believe that. And so within that, you get some very unwavering support for Israel as well. What's interesting now is the Biden administration is making noise that it's going to punish and impose sanctions on some of the settlers in the West Bank who've been vicious thugs. They've been out killing Palestinians, stealing their land, getting away with it. These are really sort of the worst people in Israel. And the fact that the Biden administration now is trying to impose some sanctions on them, means that this is going to get a lot more interesting here, because some of the Jewish support for Biden may evaporate. It's all domestic politics with these people clamoring to attack Iran, to destroy Hamas, and to pretend that Hamas and Hezbollah, everybody, they're puppets under the control of Iran, and Iran is the devil incarnate. Whereas Iran looks at the United States as just the same way, that we are a satanic country. Worth noting that Iran does not, it's not such a fanatical religious state that it can't have normal relations with other countries like China and Russia. I mean, if they really were these hard-line religious fanatics who, unless you are Muslim like me, then we're not going to talk. Well, but they're not that way. No, the one they had a real grievance with is the United States and Israel. Both in part because in the past, even though the United States was directly involved with overthrowing the government of Mossadegh and was seen as having backed the Shah, there was a period of time when the United States was providing weapons to Iran. We were also providing chemical weapons to Iraq so that Iran and Iraq could kill each other. And I think that message, they finally looked around and said, wait a second. These Americans, they're bad. They're not good people. They're bad people.
So let's go back to something you said, Larry. My lighting just fell in the background.
Oh boy,
my lights. But it's okay. We got the second one up, so it's cool.
All right.
But and this is on religious terms, but it goes to the policies and the politics of the West. Okay, the extremists here, or the Christian extremists, or what do you call them? Christian, like Falwell and the rest of them.
Yeah.
They believe that this is the time of the judgment, and they believe that Jesus is coming back. Okay, and the Muslims believe that Jesus is the Messiah. It's in the Holy Quran, and they believe that the great Mahdi is coming. And why, when the Muslims say that, they get labeled as extremists, and yet it is acceptable for Falwell, I think he's passed away, but others like him to say
Hagee is another one who's
to
very...
say this, but they're not extremists. I mean, why is that? And doesn't that show and reflect the mind state of the American government as well?
Well, it underscores how divorced from the real world the American government is. The Biden administration, and frankly, even if it was the Trump administration, you'd still have the majority of the people in there who would not take into account or take seriously the concept of this doctrine of last things, that the world has a finite period of existence, that that there is a religious battle, there is a spiritual warfare going on between the forces of good and the forces of evil, and that that God is going to bring a final judgment and will bring peace as a result of that judgment. I mean, the people, as you point out, the Muslims and Christians who really, really believe that are a fairly significant number. And so that's another factor that's at play here that, the conventional politicians ignore because they don't have any experience with it. They don't understand it. And so if you don't understand something or you've never experienced it, you ignore it. But they ignore it at their own peril, because that really is a consideration that's driving some of the actions here.
Do you think that America has been pre-planning this war with this escalation? Because with all of that the weaponry and all of the warships and all of the warplanes, and then we can't forget the escalation in Syria and Iraq, and it just so happened after the Iraqi government voted to oust the dollar in its trade. Do you believe that the U.S. is planning for escalation and war with Iran right now?
Well, no, I don't think they're planning. Because if they're planning, you'd say, okay, look, we're going to get ready to go to war with Iran. So we're going to have X number of 155 millimeter shells. And what can we produce right now? Well, we can't produce that amount. Okay, let's start building the factories and let's start producing. So if you're planning, you're going to identify what you have, where your shortfalls are, and then you're going to start taking steps to correct those shortfalls, to create a surplus so that you will have sufficient armaments and weapon systems. The United States isn't planning this, man. We're just we're like a bad jazz band. We're just riffing off of, we can't play the instruments real well, but we're making some noise. But we're not following any sheet music.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think about the strategic agreement signed by Iran and Russia last week?
Yeah, they're sending a message. Iran's not going to be in this fight alone, and it's really I don't think this is so dramatically new from the standpoint that for well over 4 years now, Russia and China have been conducting joint military exercises with Iran. Well, you don't go out and conduct joint military exercises with somebody you're never planning to come to their aid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why they do the joint exercise. That if Iran gets into a fight, these guys can come in and say, hey, we're going to help you fight. If it's going to be a cage match and, a tag team event, we're going to be in there with you.
Yeah. And speaking of that, they just announced today on Press TV There's an article out says Iran, Russia, China to hold joint naval drills in the coming week. The top Iranian commander says. Is this a sign to America and Israel to keep the escalation to a minimum?
No, I don't think. Again, these exercises, they're planned 18 months in advance. Okay. So just because they announce that they're doing it this week, next month, it's been in the works for 18 months. Mm-hmm. So, and that was the same thing with this latest operation exercise that's going on with NATO. Some people are saying, "Oh, they're sending Russia a message, and NATO's getting ready to invade." Well, not really. I mean, this exercise was put together, starting in 2022. So it's not like it started last week. Say, yeah, we're going to send a message to Russia. So when you see these kinds of military exercises, they are pre-planned, but they are important because they symbolize the fact that Russia and China are taking concrete steps to be prepared to interact militarily with Iran on its behalf.
Mm-hmm. So before we transition to the Ukrainian thing, back to the Middle East, North African region, why would the leadership of America, when we're already in an economic downturn, we have a housing crisis that is like right over the horizon, we have growing unemployment, hunger, people can't afford medicine, we're no longer producing anything, and the only way that we can fund our government now is through budget deficits. Why would they risk the economy and the lifeline of the American people by escalating in strategic waterways like the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea, the Mediterranean, the Arabian Sea? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So why are they doing it?
Well, actually, it does make some sense from the standpoint that if you can create greater threats overseas, which means you have to up the defense spending, which means you have to spend more money that's going to Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, and other defense contractors. That's pumping money into the economy that, while it may not be the most efficient, is still going to help keep the economy afloat and roaring along into the election. Now, it is the perception that, I was going to make fun of you by saying that, don't you realize how good your life is under Joe Biden and his economy? What the hell's wrong with you, man? A buddy of mine was just in Atlanta, and he took several Uber trips, and all of his Uber drivers, it turns out, were black, and one of them was this woman, and so he got talking to her about politics and stuff, and she was saying, "Hey," she said, "my life under Biden has gotten worse, not better." She goes, "I'm supporting Trump. At least when Trump was there, we were getting something that was helping us." And this is a single mother, and normally you'd think, oh yeah, these single women, especially single black women, they're going to be out there in force for people like Biden. Nope. Now it's anecdotal evidence, but I think the fact that she was reporting real world what she was up against and what she was having to do and just try to support her child meant that despite all this sunny, happy talk about how great the economy is, it's not doing well. And at the same time, people are just getting outraged at watching the U.S. government spend all billions of dollars on refugees, on these illegal migrants, and it's especially, you're seeing it up in New York City now. The black community up there, they're not getting free debit cards. They're not getting, the benefits that these non-citizens are getting dwarfs anything that American citizens would normally get. So it's just, you've got a rising tide of anger on both, not just the Republican, but also on the Democrat side, specifically over this. So the last thing they want to see is, get us involved with another foreign war. Are you crazy? Yeah, as long as you put Hunter Biden first and in the front row and send him over. But, but he won't be very happy because there won't be any cocaine readily available.
But wouldn't this be tantamount to suicide? Because if the missiles really start flying over there and the war really breaks out over there with a fragile economy, a service-based economy, which is America, wouldn't that collapse the economy and push the United States into a depression?
Well, yeah, potentially. I mean, with the thing I talked to a lot of different people who are very savvy about Wall Street, and frankly, they're scratching their heads that the United States, the debt has become so large and it's growing at such a pace that it's unsustainable. Now, one of the reasons we've been able to get away with this for so long up to this point is because the US dollar was seen as good as gold. It was the reserve currency. It was the currency that everybody in the world wanted to have. But then along comes this war in Ukraine, and the United States decides, well, by God, we're going to punish those Russians. We're going to seize all of its dollar assets. Now, all these other countries that hold dollar accounts in the United States and in U.S. banks, they're going, oh, wait a second. You mean the United States can seize our money anytime it wants and we can't do anything about it? Yep. And they go, all right, we're going to get out of those banks. We're going to move into some other currency. We're going to buy gold. We're going to buy platinum. We're going to buy uranium. You're going to buy some commodities that you can protect yourself, but you're not going to sit there and hold dollar accounts. And once that, these people willing to buy treasury bonds dries up, all of a sudden the United States no longer has the ability to finance itself out of, the finance its overseas wars, its endless wars. And then at that point, there will be an implosion. So it's just a matter of time, I believe.
So why are we pushing the envelope in Ukraine? And is Russia getting fed up? Because I just heard they hit 2 more or 3 more French aid workers or whatever in Ukraine. So are they getting fed up with NATO's intransigence and upping the ante, or are they going to allow NATO to continue to cross their red lines?
Well, I think there's an element of willing to allow NATO to sacrifice itself on the Ukrainian altar, because when this operation started off, Vladimir Putin declared 2 clear objectives. We're going to denazify Ukraine, and we're going to demilitarize Ukraine. I don't think they ever anticipated or expected that in the course of this war, or the special military operation, the euphemism, that they would end up demilitarizing NATO. But that's exactly what's happened. NATO is being stripped of its 155 millimeter artillery and the shells to go with it, and HIMARS and Patriots. So what's been exposed is that NATO does not have an unlimited supply of tanks, artillery, or ammunition, and that they've got to cut back. They've got the husband resources. Now with the war underway in Israel with the Palestinians, the demands on U.S. stockpiles has become even greater. So the United States is having to husband what it has. Same for the Brits, same for the French, same for the Germans. And Russia's sitting there going, "Wow, they're weaker than we thought." So we'll just keep bleeding them. Just keep the pressure up, force them to fight back, force them to dip into the reserves until they finally run out of gas, and then you nail them.
So do you think that America will continue to pull arms? I mean, because now you're faced with a possible war with Iran. You're seeing the Palestinians and the Israelis fighting, and that region could go up. Do you think that the United States, with its broken down manufacturing capacity, will be able to support all of these fronts on a constant basis, especially while she's trying to pivot to Asia to try to provoke and confront China?
Yeah. No, absolutely not. Can't do it. But that hasn't penetrated the consciousness and the intelligence of people like Nikki Haley, Lindsey Graham, John Bolton, because they keep talking in very bellicose, belligerent terms about, oh, we need to go over there and kill us some Iranians. We need to go kill their leadership. We need to bomb in Tehran. And it's like, do you folks even listen to yourselves? I mean, if the Iranians are talking that way about the United States, we'd be alarmed.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd take steps to counter that. Hello? Don't you think Iran's doing the same thing then? They're not sitting there going just saying, oh, those Americans, they're not serious. No, they absolutely believe we're serious. And so they're taking other steps to damage us, to hurt us. And it's so foolish because the United States no longer has the military capability to subdue Iran in its current state. If the United States underwent a mass mobilization, 2-3 million troops, taking control of factories and devoting them to military production to the exclusion of everything else, which would mean the American citizens would have to sacrifice. They would not, have the luxuries and the all the social, the restaurants and all that activity would be closed down as they'd be on a war footing. Yeah, we could, in the world of possible, yeah, we could do that, but it wouldn't go over well from a domestic political standpoint. It would take a long time to ramp up to get to the point of being able to do that. And even then, there'd be no guarantee of success in a fight with Iran. It would be very costly, both in terms of casualties for us as well as loss of equipment. We're running also the risk of having to fight Russia and China in the process too. It's just it's a sickness that has seized America. All this talk about wanting to fight Iran.
With all of these think tanks and these government-funded groups, you would think that they would understand a basic principle that is always said: "He who defends everything leaves himself exposed at home." And we see that right now with the great wealth divide, cultural divide, everything. I mean, there's we see the embers starting to smolder for revolution and civil war, while America's talking about freedom in Ukraine. I mean, isn't that insanity?
Well, yeah, but you forgot they're following another rule. There's one rule that supersedes the rule you cited. It's called the golden rule. Those with the gold get to make the rules. And so these think tanks, they're looking at who's writing the paychecks, who's writing the money that's getting them and keeping them there, and they know what those people want. They want this conflict. They want this war. So by God, you're going to write it up. It's just even the intelligence process has become so corrupted, so politicized. I guess this last week, the director of national intelligence leaked, presented to Congress, and then they started passing it around, an intelligence assessment about that Russia has lost 87% of its troops since the start of the war. I mean, it's just crazy. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. But by God, they're writing it out, putting it out there in order to try to persuade Congress. Yeah, see, man, the Ukrainians they're just beating the bejesus out of the Russians. All you got to do is just get a little more help, and the Russians are finished. And, nobody has enough sense to step back and say, so Russia's really beaten, huh? Yeah, man, they're suffering great losses. Then why are the Ukrainians retreating over the last 3 weeks? Why is that? Why is Avdiivka right now in the process of being carved up by the Russians into smaller and smaller sections? The resupply route has been cut off. So it's just, the unfortunately the intelligence community, like these private think tanks, you've got, I guess, Heritage Foundation, Center for Strategic International Studies, Institute for the Study of War. You've got a whole variety of them. They will say and do whatever the folks who write checks want them to say and do.
I know the time is getting away. I want to ask just a couple more questions to you. This is Vladimir Putin said that Russia has not even begun to fight yet, and he said that they haven't even used. They've used roughly 10% of their forces. So if that is the case, then how could the DOD go and report to Congress that Russia has lost 87% of its fighting forces when the Russian armed forces haven't even deployed 10% of their forces?
Yeah, well, they haven't even deployed the 10%, but on top of that, their recruitment rates, about 1,500 guys a day are signing up. So that means over 40,000 a month. And last year they did 500,000. Now, the Russians are under no pressure to immediately send cannon fodder to the front. So they're able to put these guys into basic training and then advanced individual training. And they get training in how to do combined operations with other units, how to operate sophisticated systems, including drones, mortars, artillery. And so then when they're cycled into the war, they come well trained and well prepared. And then also they have enough soldiers that they can rotate in and out. We don't have that on the Ukrainian side, just the opposite. You have untrained troops, and that once they're there, they have to stay on the line for an indefinite period of time without getting any relief. I mean, it's really it's a terrible situation. So Russia continues its building towards a 1.3 million man army. It's on pace to do that. The United States Army total strength 472,000, and that's not even an accurate number. It's less than that. And within that number, how many are combat, actual people that would perform combat missions? It's a fraction of that, maybe 60, 50%, something like that.
Last question.
It's just, go ahead.
No, I thought there was a delay on my end.
No, I'm good.
Last question to you, Larry. With all of that said, how long can the empire continue this? And will they start to reflect domestically and start putting their priorities on the domestic situation instead of international situation?
Until Donald Trump gets back in office, no, they won't do that. That's one of the things about Trump. He recognizes the need that you have to build America up first, and we also need to step back and say we're going to build America up for what purpose? Is our job to go out and basically take control of the rest of the world and tell everybody what the hell to do? That's a mission that if we undertake that, it's guaranteed to fail, and it will sap our strength. When you look at just the trillions of dollars that have been spent in Iraq, Afghanistan, going all the way back to Vietnam, throughout the Africa, Middle East, Asia, the United States is on this constantly embarking on these military missions, which they don't produce anything for the United States. They don't rebuild American infrastructure, and it's just sapping our strength. So we need to get to a point where we say, you know what? We don't feel we need to be the mother-in-law of the rest of the world. Let the rest of the world figure out what it wants to do. Don't mess with us. Don't attack our interests. Let's deal with each other. The other golden rule, which is we'll treat you as you want us to be, as you want to be treated. If we started doing that, I think we'd be in a much better position instead of this war party. But the sad truth is, to keep the defense industry going, and there are so many people beholden to it, compromised by it, that the United States has to keep coming up with new wars in order to justify spending hundreds of billions of dollars on those industries.
So we're looking at the fall of America because there's no turning around. There are no adults in the room. These people are greedy, they're selfish, and they're running the country into the ground. That's what you're saying in a nutshell.
Yeah, when we, use the expression, when we lose our shit, because 3 people are killed in Jordan by some sort of drone. And we could care less that over 100,000 Americans are dying every year from fentanyl overdose. 100,000. We don't care. No, we're not stopping the flood of drugs and immigrants coming across the southern border. Inner city, whether you choose inner city Chicago or Philadelphia or New York City or Atlanta or Washington, D.C., it's not good. But hey, we can get away with it because it's black people anyway. Who cares about them? Let them kill each other. I mean, that's the attitude. And these kids that are being raised, where you've seen this transformation of black culture in America. From in the 1940s, you had more 2-parent households in black families than you did in Caucasian families. And that strong religious tradition within that. And the federal government has managed to help destroy that, so that, and it's not just among black females, it's white females, it's Latino females, the increased number having children out of wedlock, and just you got to break down a society from within. So it's all the foreign wars are doing is distracting us from taking care of business at home. We got to, if we said, hey, look, our priority in the United States is going to be one. We want to promote strong families. We're going to give, if you are somehow accepting public assistance, we're going to give you an incentive to have a husband and wife. But instead, our culture has gone down this dark path where even the attack on heterosexual marriage is seen as okay, and promotion of all these perversions is like, so yeah, that's what we have to do. And it's a recipe, it's going to destroy the country. Without strong families, and that it's not just that they're having babies, but that these children are being raised with values to believe, you got to be honest, you got to work hard, treat others fairly. That doesn't just happen. That's taught to you, and that's taught to you by parents. And if parents fell in that duty, then they end up raising a generation of savages.
Mm-hmm.
And then the entire fabric of society ends up being torn under. So my position all along has been, these foreign wars are just a distraction, and they are designed to keep people like a dog chasing a squirrel. Mm-hmm. We're not paying attention to the burglar that's entering the house while the dog's out chasing the squirrel.
So Larry, thank you. And in closing, I'll say this. There's an old scripture verse that says, and though they did not like to retain God in their consciousness, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which were not seemly. And we see that all types of perverseness and ungodly things are taking place across America under the justification of, I have the right to do this and this and this, at the expense of the fabric of society and your duty to God and humanity. That is what is pervasive across the map here. Yeah. So on that note, Larry, thank you again, man, for joining me and giving me your time. I really, really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I got to thank you, man.
Hey, my friend, anytime. I'm always happy to sit down and chat with you. We always have an informed discussion.
Thank you, my man, and be blessed. And I'll see you later. I'll send you the video too.
All right. Thanks so much. Later, my man. Bye.
All right. So everybody, we've had Larry on the show. We're gonna tomorrow morning. I'll be guest hosting with my guy Juan over at Real Truth Talk. Tomorrow evening, I'll be back on this platform, interviewing Matthew Everett. Thursday morning, I will have Dimitri Lascaris. Thursday evening, we will have Carl Zar on the show. Yeah, we're doing it for you. We're doing it for you. So, and we may have a few more surprise guests if they're able to fit us in their schedule at this moment. So I just want to let every one of you know that we're working hard to give you the truth, because so many others are taking advantage of the ignorance of the masses, and we want to empower you. If you know what we know, we can't take advantage of it. If you know what we know, you are empowered, you're confident, and you're ready to shake, rattle, and roll. On that note, I go out the same way that I always come in with love in my heart for each and every one of you if you love truth. But know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous and treat everybody the way that you would like to be treated. Not because people are around, but because it's the right thing to do. That's what my mama told me here. And mama, your baby boy still loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. We're out of here. Thank you for joining me.